Alright guys, such a comic again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Rostermania is back on the menu. Jersey Jerry and the Bush Boys confirming last night that Spart is gone off the team, and they themselves say he is on his way to Boston. Boston haven't confirmed this yet, but what does it mean for their roster and what could be next? Because rumours that might not be the only change that this team is looking to make. Lots of drama with the Bush as a result of this. What are they going to do with their team next? Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to start with a couple of things because we know that Scrap has been beefing basically everyone over the last few days. It was talked about and now it's been confirmed by multiple parties that the league, after the pros just didn't test any of the new maps in time, they reached out to some of the former pros and be like, okay, can you guys test the maps instead because our actual pros won't do it. So we'll see what this means. It doesn't appear that anything is going to change before Major 2. I still don't really understand why, but it is what it is. But these maps have been tested. The results on Saki and even Fringe and Meltdown Search, among others. Look, we should have had a map pool change after Major 1. Hopefully we get a pretty radical one after Major 2. Just it'll make the viewing experience better and more interesting. It'll certainly make the product more compelling as a viewer. Look, these weeks of online qualifiers, watching a lot of Den and a lot of Scar. I'm not saying those maps need to go, but I do think that we're due a change in the map pool, let's say. People would debate what that should be, but there have been also talks as to say, well, could you just add a load of new maps instead of removing any? The teams will never agree what to remove because they will use their own personal team bias in terms of what they're good at and what they're not. So, well, people have said, well, what if you had more maps? Isn't that a plausible solution? Scrap isn't very happy about this idea. Now, I think he creates a bit of a straw man because no one's really suggesting that we have 10 maps per game mode, right? People are saying, well, we've currently got 5. Could you just add Saki and it would become 6? Or maybe you could even go up to 7. For example, back in Black Ops 3, it wasn't in the CWL rule set, but in the Game Battles rule set, you had Fringe, Breach, Infection, Redwood, Stronghold, Evac, and Hunted. All of those 7 maps were in play at some point or another, and look, could we add more maps in? Scrap's argument is that this would be way too much work for the pro players. They couldn't possibly do that many scrims. It's like, look, if the CDL decided that was the situation, the pros would find a way to do it, right? Maybe they have to split the maps they play across 2 scrim series. There would be a solution. Scrap obviously isn't happy about it, and look, you can get annoyed with what Scrap has to say, and obviously he's got a take on everything, which is fine, and it's good for us to talk about. But you've also got to understand that from the pro player perspective, Scrap kind of sums up quite well the way that the pros often think on these issues. And as much as I don't agree with Scrap's take on this, I understand it, because it's like, why would the pros ever want to do more work or change things that aren't going to benefit them? This is like, the league needs to listen to this type of clip from Scrap and realise why they need to take charge, and you can't let the pro players choose, because otherwise they're going to just choose in their own best interest. The other thing to say is that currently we don't really have that many map mode combinations. We have 5 in Hardpoint, 5 in Search, and 3 in Overload. Back in the day, we used to have way more than that. I mean, in Black Ops 3, there were 4 game modes. It was Hardpoint, Search, Uplink, and CTF, and there were more maps that could be played for each of those modes. In Advanced Warfare, they brought in tons of maps. They had so many DLC maps that they forced the pros to play on relatively short time frame. You know, they're bringing in maps like Drift, like, what was it called again? Compounds, like Parliament. I mean, did they not play Skyrise, whatever it was, that season for a time as well? So, look, the game has changed. The pros are softer now than they used to be. The league's got to step in on this one. Zoom was talking about it and says, the guy's always crying. It is what it is.
Mode in, and everyone's agreeing. Everyone's fucking like, yeah, that's a fucking great idea. Like, are we fucking retarded? Are we deadass? And we think this is a smart idea? Chat, 10 maps per game mode. Chat, I play 8 maps right now. It takes me 2 hours to finish the scrim. Okay, if there was 10 maps per game mode, okay, Overload and S&D would literally take 8 hours, bro. 8 hours to scrim one set. We're not even thinking. We're not even. Yes, from a viewer standpoint, it has to happen. God fucking no, it doesn't have to happen at all. It's your job. 8 hours is okay, bro. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, Jesus. Oh my God, an 8-hour workday, unheard of. You guys are just fucking Jesus Christ. Some of you, I swear.
The other thing just to quickly mention on this scrap drama was that, of course, he's been beefing Octane, he's been beefing others. Now, my presumption on this was that he'd seen Octane say that aBeZy was better, more impactful, or whatever. We had that debate yesterday, and that's why he said, "Oh, Octane's terrible on the flank." But apparently, no, that was just love of the game, right? Scrap says, "No, I don't care about who they think is the best. I just thought that Octane was terrible on the show, so I thought that I would say that in public." So fantastic stuff as always. Let's talk about, though, what happened last weekend. FaZe went down in 5 to G2. G2, I wouldn't say they were on the verge of needing to blow it up or anything because they'd had a good result at the major. But after their 3-0 defeat to Toronto, things were looking a little bit sketchy, but they bounced back nicely with a win there. The team that looked absolutely defeated, deflated, on the verge of implosion was the Boston Breach. Now, Trey called this on our Dope Check show. He said a couple of weeks ago, because there were rumours that they were going to drop Cammy and drop Nasty. At least one of those two were going to be gone. He said, look, if you're going to potentially do that, and the players know that you are potentially going to do that, if you decide to stick it out, you are mentally compromising the roster. That, I think, is what we have seen. Octane says you just got to throw the whole team into the sun. That's not what they've done quite yet, but as of last night, we started to get the implications that, yes, they have indeed gone out and picked up a player. So Jersey Jerry puts this one out. We've got Telluride Bush tweet this out, and then Don hits the GGs in the quote tweet, and then ProLoot puts this out, which makes things very clear indeed. So this kind of came out of nowhere to a certain extent. We expected Boston to make a change, but I wasn't sure who they would go and get. Would they go and try and get one of the Bush guys? That is what's happened. Now, Spart had an offer earlier this season to go to Cloud9. He rejected it for understandable reasons. He's done fantastically well on Bush since then, right? He has become the face of the franchise player, as people often talk about in the Bush comments. So I'm sure that he will be greatly missed by the audience and the fans of the Bush. Hashtag unshaven. But they dropped the episode last night, and this is the thumbnail that they put on. Spart's out of there. So look, this was a possibility, as I say, for some time. We thought maybe to Cloud9 was an option. He said no to that, and since he stayed on the Bush, he accrued, 1,600 odd Twitch subscribers even, making way more money than the Cloud9 boys, that he would have been making over there. So, look, he's been a key part of the Bush. I know that it's going to be sad for the Bush fans, right? Because they've rooted for this team. Of course, they lost TJ earlier in the season. He went up to the Pro League. They brought in Fire instead. But Spart has become like the key face of the team from a content perspective and everything, certainly during the course of the Major 1 cycle running into Dallas. And look, the Bush fans get to now go and support him in the league to a degree. He's going to be on Boston, which is, not expected to be the best team, but I think he could have a decent run of things. He was respectable when he stepped into Cloud9 at the end of last season. He's had a couple of good runs in the Pro League, and the reality is Bush probably weren't going to be able to keep hold of him forever. He was going to be one of the top prospects. I do think he's probably been the best, certainly the most likely player to get picked up from the Bush over recent weeks. But after all the talk that they might blow up their Bush roster even before the major, then they came second at the major, and then they just won the cup a couple of days ago. Things were looking real good for the Bush on this upcoming cycle. Now they've got one of their players poached away. So this is what Jersey Jerry and the boys have to say about it.
Yeah, I got just a DM from Spart a couple hours ago, and showed me a screenshot of Boston reaching out, and they want him to join Boston Breach. And we're listen, of course, initially, it stings, of course. At the end of the day, though, we love the guy to death. We want to see the best for him. We can't wait to watch him in the CDL. We're pumped. But yeah, of course, it's gonna sting, and we wish him luck the rest of the way. And listen, I don't know about everybody else. I think you guys would agree. Spart always has a spot on the Bush, always, no
100%.
matter what.
Yep, his jersey will be hung in the rafters
next to TJ's.
Next to TJ.
Bush then come out and say, take good care of him, hashtag Bush forever. Thank you, Spart, Bush, Arrow, Boston. Now, this is all pretty hilarious to me because typically you're not meant to reveal what team he's going to go to before they've announced it themselves. That is, you know, a gentleman's agreement, shall we say. Good etiquette, as it were. But they've just said, no, he's going to Boston. So as of recording this, Boston haven't confirmed it. Presumably they're going to do so today because otherwise people are just going to know what's coming on. So yes, Spart is expected to join the Boston breach. He's definitely going, and they've said that he's joining Boston. So we can only presume that that change is probably going to be for Cammy, right? One would imagine. The current setup would be that Nasty shouldn't be going anywhere unless, of course, he gets poached by Toronto, which is not impossible. If they got the wallet out, they could maybe make some sort of a deal happen there. But if Boston want to take a step forward, they've got to try and keep Nasty and also try and keep Nasty happy. We saw what happens with JoeDeceives when the Toronto team was cooked. His individual level dropped off. No surprises there. If the same happens with Boston and the team is compromised, you're also not going to get the best version of Nasty either than you have been getting for recent weeks. So Spart's expected to go to Boston, but is that going to be enough, right? This is their recent performance. Again, Cammy, I've said it for some time, as much of a great player as he has been, certainly God War, people always say, and he will have the occasional map or series that turns the head. But the recent few series haven't been good. I just think in many respects the team probably just ran its course, right? Cammy, Purge and Snoopy have been a trio since right at the start of last season. That's a long time for a team that hasn't achieved much. Of course, they made top 3 at Champs, which was extremely impressive, and they deserve credit for that. And dropping Awakening for Nasty was an upgrade on paper, and I back that decision. But also, it's difficult as a team which is mid-pack at best to stick it out too long with a core when you're not winning anything, right? Like, look, a trio to last for years if it's Simp, aBeZy and Cell, where they're winning every year or they're making finals at least and they're, you know, mixing it up on Sundays, yeah, sure, you can understand that. But it's rare for a trio to last the course in this type of circumstance. So these are the overall numbers this year. Snoopy started the year really well. His last couple of series have been pretty shambolic. There is an argument that he just needs a different duo at this point. Cammy individually has been pretty underwhelming. There was some talk from Bance that you want to put Cammy back on the sub, right? Bance says, I'll link all his highlight plays and pass cods. 9 out of 10 times it's him with an SMG in hand. So that's what Bance thinks that they should do, or that they should try. Of course, they've not confirmed anything yet, so there are a couple of options here on the table. One would presume that it's Spart in for Cammy alongside Nasty, with Purge and Snoopy potentially to stay, but, you know, I think the SMGs are where the problem lies here, really. I think I would keep Snoopy. I'm just not sure that Purge and Snoopy just isn't working on this game. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, I'd be keeping Snoopy over Purge. The numbers back that up. Even though Purge has had a couple of decent series lately, I'd be bringing somebody else in instead. There is an argument that you could maybe put Cammy to the sub, and then actually it's Purge who makes way and it's Spart that comes in. Is that a consideration? Bance would probably do it. Don't know if Boston are thinking that way right now, and I'm not sure that screams to me as a long-term solution. The other possibility really is to make some sort of a two-man change, and I think that's when the conversation has shifted to some degree towards what about some of the Huntsman boys, because we've now seen a couple of the Bush guys get picked up to the league, we've seen a couple of the Huntsman guys get picked up to the league, we've seen some of the Stallions get picked up to the league as well in a roundabout various way. And is there an option for someone like Renegade? I've thought for some time that Renegade to Boston would make some sense, and, you know, he could maybe run a sub for this team. Is that a consideration? Possibly. If I'm Boston, I'm certainly having the conversation to see if he can make something happen over there. But the reality is that Challengers has been very entertaining this season. There's been a ton of interesting storylines and players now getting signed up to the Pro League. So we'll see what Boston decide to do from here. There were rumours, of course, that multiple teams were set to make changes this week, and because Boston haven't said anything yet, it's not 100% clear exactly what they're going to do with this roster, and whether they're going to make more changes over the next few days, and whether those changes could filter down elsewhere as well, right? Obviously, Cammy spent some time over on Toronto, not saying that's something they would go for, but regardless, right, it's something that's worth keeping in mind, that it might not just be Boston changing over the next couple of days. Of course, some of the other teams that were slightly more questionable, they either had good weekends last time out or at least respectable performances. Koi got a bounce back win, G2 got a, G2 weren't really in the conversation, but they got a bounce back win, and then Falcons, who have been somewhat questionable as well, they 3-0 smoked Ravens in about 30 minutes. So that's a positive for lots of these teams, but Boston were by far the most broken roster of last weekend's, so I think it's pretty inevitable what we have seen happen last night. What it means for the Bush, who are they going to get instead? Good question, right? Could they pick up a personality, right? Bring in Beans, maybe? I don't know. Of course, they played him in the finals, the Challengers Cup. That would be an interesting storyline. It's obviously a shame for the Bush fans that have been supporting Spart on that roster. They can now support Spart in the Pro League to an extent. But also, this is the way of things, right? This is how things go down there in Challengers, and they will have new personalities and new players to support, and that keeps the life cycle churning. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.